Hello and welcome to Your Money Matters. My name is Cabot Ray, and I'm here with Mike Martinez, who is the founder, the CEO of the Pension Group. We've been talking about pensions. We've talked about that recently, but let's talk again about what is so important about knowing segmented interest rates with your company.
Well, segmented interest rates are really, it's an approach when it comes to corporate pension plans, not state pension plans, which we'll talk about later. But when we talk about corporate pension plans, there's really three segmented interest rates. The first segmented rates is the first 5 years of someone's pension calculation. The second segmented rate is years 6 through 19, and the third segmented rate is years 20 years plus. So, if you're at a company 20 years, you're only using those two segmented interest rates. But if I've been at a company 30 or 40 years, I'm using all three, and usually the third segmented rate's the highest. And as we know, if rates go higher, I lose money in my pension. And really what I stress to people is understanding how this works, and it's really simple. Once you understand what you're looking at, and you don't have to get really deep or, in the weeds, as I say, it's simple math. It's like looking at the number from last year, comparing it to this year. And if this rate's significantly higher, and the second one's higher, and the third one's higher, and if on average we see a 0.75% increase in segmented interest rates from the prior year, that means roughly a 13% loss. The year before, we lost close to 30%. And people's, segmented interest rates, they saw a decrease to the lump sum pension. And literally, people can avoid that, meaning they can avoid the loss. But what do they got to do? They got to retire on a certain date. So a lot of companies, it's 12/31, maybe it's March 1st, depending on the company you're working with.
So you want to retire at least a day before that date,
or
more.
You can actually retire on that date, but you don't want to work one day past that. Because if you work one day past that, what ends up happening is those new segmented rates go into effect. And people said, well, I thought my pension was safe. And then in actuality, people don't realize that you can lose six figures or more. And again, when you start losing that type of money, you got to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, what's right for me and my family? Maybe I retire. Maybe I go do something else. Or maybe I'm doing the same thing, but working at a different company. Or maybe I'm volunteering at the church or whatever the case might be.
But again, your company, you can use you as a resource to tell them when these rates are going into effect, what the dates are, and to kind of remind them to get moving if they're planning to retire. Your company produces this really wonderful brochure. It's called Your Passion, Your Pension, Our Passion. And inside here are some, they talk about the biggest pitfalls, the biggest potential problems, not only for 401k, but also for pension, in pension calculation, the 10 common mistakes it lists here. So what are a couple of those?
Well, the 10 most common pension errors that we see, it really comes down to math. We'll find people that have worked 20, 30, 40 years at a company, and maybe they move from one plant to the next, from, here in Ohio or Michigan or wherever they move down to Georgia or Alabama or whatever case might be. Sometimes those feeds don't get calculated properly. I had one client where literally he had 5 straight years where they showed zero as far as his earnings in his pension calculation. And it ended up being a $58,000 mistake. Sometimes we get
Were they able to correct that mistake?
Well, certainly, yeah. We know not only how to find the mistake, we know who to contact in order to get that corrected before the deadline, because that year rates were going up and he had to be off of payroll by 3/1. So it was a little bit of a deadline, type of thing. The second thing we'll find, let's face it, I've been through a divorce. It's not something I'm proud of. What ends up happening when someone goes through divorce? Well, there's a qualified domestic relation order. We find errors in those calculations. My largest one we found was an $88,000 mistake by the company. And the reality of it is this happens more often than not. I'm not saying it's going to happen with everybody, but the reality of it is if there's a mistake in your calculation, you worked at a company 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, when you have this lump sum pension, you want to get every red cent that you worked so long and hard for. You don't want to give that back to the company. So we often see that as a potential error. And people often, they want to retire, or they say, my pension calculation, I'm going to have a $500,000, $600,000 pension. Well, when did you run that calculator? Well, I ran it today at age 53 and I'm running at age 60. Well, that number is, I call it kind of like pie in the sky. It's a great number to look at, But is that the reality of what it's going to be, that lump sum? It may or may not, depending on what these segmented interest rates are doing.
Exactly.
And if rates keep going up, that number of whatever they ran, so that's also another mistake that a lot of employees will do. Well, it says right here, but a lot of times these calculators by year end, it takes the companies a while to update because these segmented rates come out every month.
Right.
It all comes down to the corporation. But once we know that, then we can advise people correctly as to how much they're going to make, or in this case, the last couple of years, how much more you're going to lose when it comes to your pension.
Well, let's move on now to a really, I think, is a very potentially exciting concept or a practice, and that's the Roth IRA.
Yeah.
And tell everybody here, in case people don't understand, what is it that makes that such an exciting option for people to invest in?
Well, it's one of the opportunities that it gives individuals the opportunity to have tax-free income in retirement. And you say tax-free? Yeah, tax-free income. We've been, a lot of people that I've retired, they've been working 20, 30, 40 years for companies, and they've been putting monies in their 401ks. It's always been pre-tax. Pre-tax, pre-tax, pre-tax. And, maybe I had 250, now it's worth $1 million. I have that growth. Okay. But now when I pull out $1, Uncle Sam always wants to get paid.
Right.
And, the difference of it is inside of 401k plans today, you can put money inside your 401k and say, I want it to either go pre-tax or I want it to go into the after-tax, or what we call Roth. More and more corporations are doing that today. Now, the difference of it is you don't get a deduction when you put it into the Roth. But now if I can grow this money, continue to grow it and grow it and grow it. So think of it as a baseball or a golf ball to a baseball. Now it's a basketball. Now all of a sudden I have all this tax-free income in retirement. Who cares what our national debt's at, where tax rates go, because tax rates are only going to go up. And if you have a substantial amount of money that you've started to put aside into a Roth, 30, 40, 50 years of age, and you let this grow for 15, 20 years, now all of a sudden you have a substantial nest egg that you don't have to worry about paying taxes on.
And again, we need to stress the fact that when you do that, you do pay taxes up front on whatever you take out of your 401k for the Roth. You will pay taxes then, but taxes may be lower than they would be years down the road. And so from that point on, you're not paying another dime of tax on the money that your Roth earns you in investment.
Yeah, and that's right, Cabot. And the thing I tell people right now, taxes are on sale. Under President Trump, you liked him, you didn't. I don't get into political discussion. But what I tell people is, in the year January 1st, 2026, if someone's in a 22% tax bracket, we know there's going to be an increase of 6%. It's going to go to 28%. So if we're going to take advantage of low tax brackets as we see them today, take advantage of it now while taxes are on sale before tax rates go up. And if you can start making that, and that's one of the things we do with a lot of clients, is on an annual basis, we're bringing clients in, and there's clients that are doing 50, 100, 150. We had one client last year did over $1 million conversion. The ultra wealthy know one thing only. Tax rates aren't going down, my friend.
Okay.
They're going to continue to go up and up and up.
And that's the advantage. All right. Thank you, Mike.